In 1964, at a time when television families were all uniformly perfect, a completely different family moved into the house at 1313 Mockingbird Lane and captured the heart of America. The show. The Munsters premiered and created a cultural sensation, with its story of a lovable monster family consisting of a Frankenstein's monster father, a vampire mother and grandfather, and a werewolf son. The work was not only a resounding commercial success, but also became an unforgettable part of an entire generation's memory. They taught us that what makes a family is not what you look like, but the love you share. But behind the thick layers of makeup and those classic characters are actors with their own very separate fates. 6 decades have passed, and time has etched different marks on their lives. Some continued to shine brightly, some chose a quieter path, and there were also those who had to stop their journey in tragedy. Let us look back at the tumultuous journey of the cast that brought the soul to the Munsters. Fred Gwynne as Herman Munster. In the Munsters, the character of Herman Munster was the heart of the family. Though he had the form of Frankenstein's monster, he was a father with a childlike heart, clumsy but incredibly warm. With his signature thunderous laugh and childish tantrums, Herman left an indelible impression. Fred Gwynne's performance at the time, at age 38, brilliantly portrayed a large but gentle man who brought laughter through his very innocence. He had to wear nearly 50 pounds of makeup and padding, enduring the terrible heat of the studio to create an immortal character. After the Munsters ended, Fred Gwynne faced a difficult battle escaping the immense shadow of Herman. He was so typecast in the role that he refused to even speak of it for many years. He returned to his love for the stage, where his talent was recognized in complex roles, notably as Big Daddy in Tennessee Williams' Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Gradually, he succeeded in re-establishing himself as a talented character actor on the big screen. Late in his career, he had a glorious comeback with critically acclaimed roles such as the haunting Judd Crandall in Pet Sematary, and especially as the stern judge, Chamberlain Haller, who faced off against Joe Pesci in the classic comedy My Cousin Vinny, his final role. He was also a multi-talented artist, a Harvard graduate, and a gifted author and illustrator of children's books. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and his life. It seems the role of Herman Munster was a complete opposite of the man himself. While on screen, the character was a blue-collar worker, naive and somewhat oafish in real life. Fred Gwynne was an intellectual, an artist of depth, and a classically trained stage actor. His struggle to escape the image of Herman was the struggle of a serious artist who did not want to be limited by a comedic role. However, that journey, full of effort and talent, had to come to an end. On July 2, 1993, Fred Gwynne passed away at the age of 66 from pancreatic cancer. His passing left a great void. The legacy he left behind is not just the lovable monster, father, but the life story of a true artist who fought for recognition and ultimately won. Yvonne De Carlo as Lily Munster. In the Munsters, the character of Lily Munster was the elegant soul, the calm center amidst the family's chaos. With her signature white-streaked black hair and vampiric beauty, Lily was the embodiment of a devoted wife and mother in her own unique way. Yvonne De Carlo's performance at the time, at age 42, brought a grace and class to the role, turning a female vampire into an admirable homemaker. Before becoming the mistress of 1313 Mockingbird Lane, Yvonne De Carlo was already one of the biggest stars of Hollywood's golden age. She was a queen of Technicolor film, famous for her stunning beauty in adventure and Western movies. Her most iconic role before this was Sephora, the wife of Moses, in the epic blockbuster The Ten Commandments. Taking the role of Lily Munster was a surprising move, taking her from the big screen to the small screen. After the series ended, she continued to have a durable career, most notably with an impressive return to the Broadway stage in Stephen Sondheim's musical Follies, where she received rave reviews for her performance of the song I'm Still Here, a song that seemed to summarize her entire life and career. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and her life. It seems the role of Lily Munster was a special chapter in an extraordinary career. While on screen, the character was a family woman in real life. Yvonne De Carlo was a true Hollywood star who had experienced the pinnacle of fame and the downturns of a career she brought. The aura of a movie star to illuminate the character of the vampire matriarch. However, that glamorous journey had to come to an end after a life dedicated to art on January 8, 2007. Yvonne De Carlo passed away at the age of 84 from natural causes. Her passing left a great void. The legacy she left behind is not just Lily Munster, but the image of one of the last stars of a glorious Hollywood era that has passed, Al Lewis's grandpa. In The Munsters, the character of Grandpa was a memorable antagonist. In his own way, he was a century-old vampire with mischievous plans, a laboratory in the basement, and a love for hearses. Al Lewis' performance at the time, at age 41, brilliantly portrayed a grandfather who was sarcastic, cunning, and yet loving to his family. The comedic chemistry between him and Fred Gwynne, which had been forged on the series Car 54 Where Are You, was one of the highlights of the show. After The Munsters ended, Al Lewis did not try to escape his character. On the contrary, he embraced it and made it a part of himself. He became Grandpa. In real life, he opened an Italian restaurant in Greenwich Village, New York, called Grampus. He became a passionate political activist, a vocal figure in his community, even running for governor of New York in 1998 as the Green Party candidate. He was a highly educated man, holding a PhD in child psychology from Columbia University. A surprising fact behind the image of the vampire grandfather, the most thought-provoking thing, is the connection between the role and his life. It seems the line between the character of Grandpa and the man, Al Lewis, almost ceased to exist. While on screen, the character was a strong personality who was not afraid to speak his mind in real life. Al Lewis was even more so. He turned his character into a platform to voice his political views, to become a public figure in his own unique and inimitable way. However, that charismatic and vibrant journey had to come to an end. On February 3, 2006, Al Lewis passed away at the age of 82 from natural causes. His passing left a great void. The legacy he left behind is not just the immortal vampire grandfather, but the life story of a man who lived life to the fullest by no one's rules but his own, true to the spirit of a real Munster. Butch Patrick as Eddie Munster. In The Munsters, the character of Eddie Munster was the family's adorable werewolf son, with his little velvet sailor suit and signature widow's peak. Eddie was the embodiment of a normal kid in an abnormal family. The performance of young Butch Patrick, at the time at age 11, authentically and lovably portrayed a boy growing up proud of his monstrous family. After The Munsters ended, Butch Patrick's life was a typical story of the ups and downs of a child star. He continued acting for a while, but as he grew older, he left Hollywood behind to pursue a normal life. However, life after the spotlight was not easy. He faced a 40-year battle with alcohol and drug addiction, a grim struggle that cost him dearly. But he was a survivor. After getting through the darkest of times, he found himself again. He not only rebuilt his life, but also became a voice to help others struggling with addiction. He also embraced his legacy, becoming a familiar face at fan conventions. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and his life. It seems the role of Eddie Munster was a complete opposite of his fate. While on screen, the character was an innocent boy surrounded by love in real life. Butch Patrick had to face the most frightening demons of the real world. His journey was not a fairy tale, but a story of survival, of finding the light after being in the deepest depths. Today, at the age of 72, Butch Patrick continues to live a sober and purposeful life. He is married, continues to participate in independent film projects, and spends time sharing his story, inspiring those who need hope. his journey is a testament to the ability to overcome adversity and the power of resurrection. Beverly Owen as Marilyn Munster. In The Munsters, the character of Marilyn Munster was a humorous irony. She was the only normal one in the family, and therefore considered the ugly one. She was a beautiful, kind-hearted blonde girl who was always trying to have a normal life despite her bizarre family Beverly Owens' performance at the time, at age 27, perfectly portrayed a lovely girl serving as the straight man amidst the comedic characters around her. However, Beverly Owen only stayed with the role for the first 13 episodes. Behind the camera, she was deeply unhappy. She had fallen in love with a producer and writer in New York, and being forced to live away from him in California was torture. She reportedly cried and begged the producers to release her from her contract. Finally, her co-stars, Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis, spoke to the studio on her behalf, and they agreed. She did something few actors would dare to do. She gave up a role in a hit series to follow the call of love. She got married, moved to New York, had 2 daughters, and later pursued an academic path, earning a master's degree in early American history. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and her life. It seems her fate was an interesting contrast to her characters while on screen. Marilyn always had trouble in her love life because boys were terrified of her family in real life. It was Beverly Owen who gave up everything for love. She chose a happy ending for her own love story instead of a career in Hollywood. However, that romantic and intellectual journey had to come to an end. On February 21, 2019, Beverly Owen passed away at the age of 81 from ovarian cancer. Her passing left a great void. The legacy she left behind is not just the original Marilyn, but the life story of a woman who bravely put love and personal happiness above fame. Paul Lynde as Dr. Edward Dudley. In The Munsters, Paul Lynde stopped by as the family physician Dr. Dudley, a small guest role. At the time, he was already a familiar face on the Broadway stage and television, but his star was just beginning to shine its brightest. Paul Lynde's career truly exploded afterward, making him one of the most beloved entertainers of the 1970s, with his signature snide delivery and an EA. To toss out razor-sharp one-liners, he became immortalized as Uncle Arthur on the series Bewitched. But his greatest legacy lies in a very special seat, the center square of the game show Hollywood Squares. There he wasn't an actor. He was himself, a witty, campy, and at times shockingly bold Paul Lynde. His ambiguous answers and sarcastic quips became legendary, making him the soul of the show. However, behind the laughter was a complex man who wrestled with his own demons and a personal life that was not always peaceful. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and his life. It seems the role of Dr. Dudley was a complete contrast to the man himself. While on screen, the character was a somewhat conventional doctor in real life. Paul Lynde was one of the most unique and flamboyant personalities. He built an entire career on being himself, a rare and courageous feat. However, that journey of laughter and sarcasm came to a mysterious end. On January 10, 1982, Paul Lynde was found dead in his home at the age of 55 from a heart attack. His sudden passing left a great void and many questions. The legacy he left behind is not just his roles, but the life story of a one-of-a-kind comedic talent who dared to be himself in an era that wasn't quite ready. Pat Priest as Marilyn Munster. When Beverly Owen left, Pat Priest stepped in to take over the role of Marilyn. With a striking resemblance to her predecessor, many viewers didn't even notice the change. She seamlessly continued the role of the normal niece for the remainder of the series. Before The Munsters, Pat Priest was already a young model and actress coming from a well-connected family. Her mother was the U.S. Treasurer under President Eisenhower. She had a classic and graceful beauty. After the series ended, her acting career did not have many breakthroughs. She appeared in a few films, notably alongside Elvis Presley in Easy Come, Easy Go, but gradually withdrew from the entertainment industry. She married, had children, and chose a quiet life far from the hustle and bustle of Hollywood. She moved to Idaho, where she dedicated her time to her family and her real estate business. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and her life. It seems the role of Marilyn Munster strangely mirrored her life. While on screen the character longed for a normal life in real life, Pat Priest truly chose and achieved that life. She had no regrets about leaving the spotlight and found happiness in simple things. Today, at the age of 89, Pat Priest is still living a peaceful life. Though retired, she remains a beloved figure at fan conventions where she happily shares memories of her time on Mockingbird Lane. Her journey is proof that one can have a happy and fulfilled life after the stage lights have dimmed. John Carradine as Mr. Gateman. When John Carradine appeared on The Munsters as Mr. Gateman Herman's boss at the funeral parlor, it wasn't just a guest role. It was the presence of a legend. At that time, he was already an icon of cinema, a man with a career that spanned decades. John Carradine's journey is a summary of Hollywood history itself. He began his career in the Golden Age as a member of director John Ford's prestigious stock company, appearing in masterpieces like The Grapes of Wrath and Stagecoach. He was a character actor of the highest order with a distinctive voice and towering frame. But as times changed, he did not hesitate to transform himself, becoming a king of low-budget horror films, a genre that made him a pop culture icon. More than that, he was the founder of an acting dynasty, the father of actors David Keith and Robert Carradine. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and his life. It seems his role as the funeral parlor owner in The Munsters was a delightful bit of self-parody. The man who had played Dracula and countless other ghoulish characters was now appearing in a comedy about monsters. This role was like a wink to the audience, an acknowledgement of the horror legacy he had created, connecting the humorous world of the Munsters to the long tradition of universal monster movies. However, that extraordinary journey, which spanned nearly the entire history of Hollywood, had to come to an end. He worked tirelessly until the very last days of his life. On November 27, 1988, John Carradine passed away at the age of 82 from natural causes. His passing left a great void. The legacy he left behind is not just a massive filmography, but the life story of one of the greatest character actors and the patriarch of an artistic dynasty. Jane Withers as Pamela Thornton. When Jane Withers appeared on The Munsters, she brought a piece of Hollywood history with her. By then, she had already journeyed from being one of the world's biggest child stars to a respected character actress, and her role was part of the second act of her career. The life of Jane Withers is a story of extraordinary resilience. In the 1930s, she was one of the few stars who could compete at the box office with Shirley Temple. She was the anti-Shirley Temple, a dark-haired, energetic, and somewhat rebellious little girl, a contrast to Shirley's sweet image, but like many child stars, she struggled with the transition to adult roles. However, she did not give up. She made a spectacular comeback as a character actress, most notably in the classic film Giant, alongside James Dean and Elizabeth Taylor. And then she reinvented herself once more, becoming an unlikely advertising icon. Josephine the Plumber, the friendly face of Comet Cleanser, a role that brought her back into every home for many years. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and her life. It seems her life was a testament to survival in Hollywood. Her guest role on The Munsters was just a small stop on a long and eventful journey, while her character in the show was just part of one story in real life. Jane Withers was a whole story about Hollywood. She was a survivor, someone who witnessed the industry's ups and downs and always found a way to stay on her feet. However, that vibrant and resilient journey finally came to an end. After a long and full life in the entertainment industry on August 7, 2021, Jane Withers passed away at the age of 95 from natural causes. Her passing left a great void. The legacy she left behind is not just her roles, but an inspiring life story of a child star who refused to be swallowed by her past fame. Harvey Korman as Lenny Bates. In The Munsters, Harvey Korman appeared in a guest role, a minor character in one episode, but his presence was a sign of a great comedic talent about to explode. At the time, he was a rising television actor, honing his skills with each small part, waiting for his big break. And that break did come, after his small role in The Munsters. Harvey Korman's career soared, making him one of the legends of television comedy. Biggest turning point was when he became a main cast member on The Carol Burnett Show, where he shone brilliantly for a decade. He was a master of sketch comedy, able to transform into countless characters. But he is most remembered for his unforgettable interplay with Tim Conway sketches, where his own struggle to keep from laughing became part of the comedy itself. He won 4 Emmy Awards for his work on the show, not content with just television. He also made his mark on the big screen as a favorite actor of comedy director Mel Brooks, especially with his devious portrayal of Hedley Lamarr in the classic film Blazing Saddles. The most thought-provoking thing is the connection between the role and his life. It seems his small role on The Munsters was a glimpse of a comedic genius awaiting his grand stage, while his character in the show may have been just a minor note in real life. Harvey Korman was a whole symphony of laughter, a man who dedicated his life to perfecting the art of bringing joy to audiences. However, that journey full of laughter had to come to an end. On May 29, 2008, Harvey Korman passed away at the age of 81 from complications from a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm. His passing left a great void. The legacy he left behind is not just his roles, but the life story of one of the greatest comedic supporting actors of all time, a master of laughter.